This episode contains spoilers. Please listen responsibly. Hello everyone, my name is Jason Ramirez and welcome to Season 2, Episode 5 of the Hit List Podcast, a podcast where me and a guest cross off films from our watch list by watching them. I'm joined today by a Los Angeles-based film and TV editor, writer for Movie Maker, and someone who likes mushrooms and bacon on his pizza. A real sound guy, We have Andy Young. Welcome, Andy. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to talk about some movies.
So before we get started, can you tell me more about your streaming viewing habits? Whenever you sit down to watch a movie, do you choose something new or do you stick to your favorites?
That's I feel like it kind of changed with the pandemic. Like before the pandemic, I was like working more and I would generally go to theaters more to watch like new movies. So when I would come home, I would like watch The Simpsons or watch, stuff I've seen a million times to just relax. But with the pandemic and not being able to leave, I watched like 500 plus movies last year, most of which was stuff I'd never seen before because I was like, well, if I'm not going out, I want to try to, expand my knowledge of cinema. So I'd be like, 1 week I'll try to watch all of Akira Kurosawa's movies. 1 week I'll try to jump into a bunch of like French New Wave I'd never seen before. Really like try to expand my horizons. So I feel like generally I'm in my comfort zone when I'm just watching like MacGruber a million times or like any of my go-to like favorite like comfort food movies. But because of the pandemic, I feel like I've gotten more into the habit of like trying to reach out and try to watch stuff that I might have never tried to watch before the pandemic.
Yeah, I can definitely understand where you're coming from with that because this is the reason why I made the podcast, because of the pandemic.
Sure.
So like the way it happened was when the pandemic was announced, we went on our spring break and our spring break was extended by another week. And so I just decided, I'm just going to watch movies that are on my list. But then I found myself rewatching the same stuff over and over again. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to watch all the movies on my list.
I love it.
And it's still a work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been able to bring in people to like also come with the challenge with me. And it's always like a different guest each episode. So I'm really excited that I've also influenced other people to like expand their horizons.
Yeah.
And also like watch movies that are on their list.
I also I co-host a podcast with a buddy I went to film school with called Best Picture, where we're watching all of the films that won Best Picture in order and then talking about the Oscars that year. And it has been like there's something nice about like every Sunday or whatever we're going to talk about this. So every Saturday you need to watch a movie, and there's something really nice about that. Like you kind of force me to watch a movie that's been on my list for a long time, but then also rewatch something I hadn't seen since theaters. So that's a really cool way to do it and to bring other people into it. I love it.
So how do you do that? Do you like watch like by year, like chronologically?
Yeah, we started from Wings, the first film ever to win, and then we've been going through. We just recorded our episode for How Green Was My Valley, which is famously the film that beat Citizen Kane. And we're gonna start. I just rewatched Casablanca last night for it, so it's like, and then I need to watch Miss Miniver next, even though I kind of skipped around in order. But we're starting from because we figured we're starting to have guests, and it's like if we had done them anywhere, it's like everybody's going to want to do Parasite, but it's like, no, let's like go chronological order and watch them all in a row.
Gotcha. Citizen Kane was actually the previous episode, so
is that right?
Definitely take a listen to that one.
There you go.
Yeah.
I rewatched it for because Mank came out last year.
Yeah.
What's been your favorite like film that you've, let's say, like discovered so far through your podcast? Like, what's the one that like really like caught you off guard, or like this is the big one that like I really loved?
I would have to say Candyman.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, so episode 4 of, I think it was episode 3. Anyway, one of the early episodes, I decided to watch it because it was recommended by like this YouTuber called Code Crash Pictures. He made a whole video about it. And so I just like, might as well put it on my list. And then when I saw it, I'm like, why didn't I see this sooner? Like, it was two things, because like, why didn't I see this sooner? And also, I probably didn't see it sooner because I was a scaredy cat back then.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is a scary film. It's a very graphic movie, and it's not for everyone because it is graphic. But
yeah,
since that movie, since I've watched it, I've told people like it should be like an essential film to watch alongside like some movies like Jaws.
Oh, sure. It's definitely like I remember watching it. My friend's older brother like always had like movies for us to watch. Like the one I famously tell is that he convinced us the Blair Witch Project was real, because he was just like, "Oh, I just found this VHS tape." I was like, "Why does it have a Blockbuster sticker on it?" Doesn't matter. Let's watch it. But Candyman was a big one that was like that as well. That just like watched it way too early and definitely scarred my brain a little bit. And I think they're remaking it. I feel like it's coming out like this year or next year. They did a remake, but I don't know how you top, yeah, what they did in that first one, because it is pretty visceral film.
So from what I've seen, the details of it, I think it's a sequel.
Okay.
I believe it's a sequel to that.
Oh, interesting. It's like, yeah.
Because the baby in the film is now an adult.
Oh, that's clever. I like that. That's actually kind of a cool take on it. I thought it was like a remake kind of thing. That's cool. I might check that out then.
So let's get to the two films we'll be discussing today.
Let's do it.
We'll be discussing Sound of Metal, directed by Darius Marder, and Hush, directed by Mike Flanagan.
Mm-hmm.
So these two films, they share a common theme of the deaf community.
Yeah, it's a deaf double bill.
Yeah, there we go. Sound of Metal is a 2019 American drama film directed and co-written by Darius Marder and starring Riz Ahmed, Olivia Cook, Paul Raci, Lauren Ridloff, and Matteo Amalric. That's a French name. I have a hard time.
Oh, the dad. Yeah, that's a bit of a toughie.
Yeah, it tells the story of a drummer who begins to lose his hearing and has to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sound of Metal was on Andy's list. Andy, why was this movie on your list?
I'm a massive Riz Ahmed fan. He's one of my favorite actors. I think it was a big one. You know, it's weird. Again, it's like the pandemic. I usually in normal years would watch like 3-4 films a year, or a year, please. 3-4 films a week at the movies. I just love going to movie theaters. It's the best way to see stuff. And this was a big one I was really excited about because I'd heard a lot of buzz from it from, I think it was at Toronto in like 2019 or something like that. But it'd been on my list for a long time. And then when everything happened, it just kind of got paused. And it has been out now for a while, but I just kept kind of like putting it off. But then when you pitched me the podcast and you were like, I want to rewatch Hush, I was like, okay, what can I do that's kind of in line with that? And I thought, oh, well, this is a movie about, someone that's also like essentially this is almost the prequel with somebody losing their hearing and feeling powerless. And then to me, Hush is something about someone who lost their hearing is very powerful. But it's also it hits a little close to home because I went to a lot of punk shows as a kid in high school and stuff, and my mom was always like, you got to wear earplugs or you're going to lose your hearing like me. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. And now all my friends make fun of me because I talk so loud. So yeah, always listen to your mother. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff I wanted to watch it for, but I'm just a big Riz Ahmed fan at the end of the day, and it was really cool to get to see him do a part that was this juicy.
Yeah, I would say that this has only been on my radar for about a month because a couple of my friends loved it because it had recently come out on Amazon Prime. It came out on Amazon Prime like back in December. Mm-hmm. So it's only been there for close to 2 months actually. Yeah. It's made a huge impression on people. And the thing is, it came out in 2019 actually because it was a part of the Toronto International Film Festival.
Yeah, because I know a friend of mine had seen it there, and that was the big one where I knew it from that, and it'd been on my radar at least since then, and I was excited because again, I just love Riz Ahmed. Anything he does, I try to watch.
Yeah. So initial thoughts. What did you think about it?
I loved it. It would have been one of my favorite films of the year if I had seen it last year. It's a very visceral film. I'm always very interested in how we portray blindness and deafness in film. It kind of reminded me of, my friends made this really great documentary called Dealt that's about Richard Turner, who's he's one of the best card magicians in the world, but he's also blind. And it has a lot of the similar kind of things of someone who kind of struggles with that and coming to terms with the fact that you're becoming blind or you're becoming deaf. There's a lot of similar parallels in Richard's story, but it's also just there's something really that I'm really drawn to of someone loving this one thing more than anything and then it being stripped away from him. But I wasn't expecting the whole thing of that he was an addict and how that would play into it. And I don't know. I don't want to talk it to death too much. There's a lot of other little things I want to talk about, especially with how much the ending really hit me. But those were kind of my initial thoughts. I love Riz Ahmed. Olivia Cook's been on my radar for a long time, and she was amazing in this. And it's the director's first film, but he had co-written a movie that I really liked from a while ago called The Place Beyond the Pines. I don't know if you've seen that one, but that was one of my big ones that I really liked when that came out. And it was cool to see him get to direct a film. And I think Derek Cianfrance, who directed Place Beyond the Pines, I think he's a producer on this. But yeah, it was just cool to get to see him bring something new to the screen. Yeah, what about you? What were your initial thoughts?
I thought it was all right.
It's all right.
Like,
Nah, come on, man.
I think it's a good movie, but it's definitely not something that will be that I would like reach out and see, because I've said this before. I'm a huge genre film watcher. Like I love like stuff that's made for like a general audience, and also like action movies. That's what I'm more into. But I don't want to take that away from like the performance in this film, because it was an amazing performance from like everyone in the cast.
Yeah.
And I really love the way they portrayed like the deaf community right there. And something that the director even said, because this is something he also had to work on himself, because he used to think that deafness was a barrier. But as he began to grow more understanding from it, he saw it as a community and a culture. Mm-hmm. And he believes he's done a good job, and so did the people in the movie, of portraying that community and culture. And I think he's also done a good job there.
Well, I think he did it great for the deaf community, but also for the addict community. And again, the big thing that I imagine it's cool to spoil the movie on this, because I assume people might listen to it. But the big thing that really hit me was the ending, where it's just, he's never able to be still. He's always fidgeting. He's always like frenetic. He always has to be like smoking a cigarette or like moving his hands. Or again, he's a drummer. Like he always has to be moving and in motion. And the guy that runs the house like finally tells him, like, you need to be comfortable in the stillness. And he goes to all these like troubles to get away from that, including like this like artificial hearing thing, which again just makes the one thing he loved, music, just sound like harsh and dangerous. Like I think a lot about that thing where Olivia Cook's playing piano with her father, and we hear it, and it's like this beautiful duet, and then it goes into him, and it's just this like clippy noise, and it's just this heartbreaking thing on Riz Ahmed's face. And that's why the ending really hit me so hard, is like seeing him finally turn it off. And I love juxtaposition as an editor, so seeing these images that were like so noisy and chaotic before, now just like very still and peaceful, and him coming to terms with this. I don't know, it really hit me like a ton of bricks. I really appreciated how he chose to portray that. I thought that was really interesting. I'm regretting though, there's a movie, well, remind me, because there's a genre movie I wish I had pitched instead that I feel like you would like a lot more. Or not a genre movie, but it's more of like a horror thriller movie that was in line with Hush. I'll tell you more about it when we talk about Hush, though. Gotcha.
I will say, like, the editing in this film, the sound design is also an amazing job. Did you watch this movie with headphones, or?
No, I kind of regret it, though. I have a pretty good sound system, but my roommate's a teacher, so I had to watch it a little low. If I watch it again, I'll probably do it with headphones. But that was, like, I really loved how they portrayed that, especially with the score.
I made the great decision, I would say, on my part, to watch on the headphones. And it really takes you in there, because like there's some things you hear in your left ear and not in your right ear, or sometimes in your right ear and not your left ear.
Sure.
It's really hard to describe in words, because like I'm not a very good descriptive person. But hot tip for you guys, if you watch this movie, watch it with headphones on.
There you go, yeah. It's a great sound design film for sure. The way that it portrays, again, deafness, but also his anxiety and his inner demons was really fantastic. And again, like I'm a big sucker for like when writers finally become directors, and I thought he did an incredible job. There's just so many like little details that I loved in the background of, their van and getting to know who they are, and just little things that we see, like her arm, and just the stuff that like he shows like very quick like glimpses of, but it's never like overt and over your head. And again, it just gives a lot of room for the performers to get to express what they're going for. And yeah, which I loved about Riz Ahmed in any movie I see him in.
What were your favorite scenes in this movie?
Oh, man. Definitely. I mean, all the stuff of him drumming really takes me back to my days of like going to a lot of punk shows as a kid. But like, I think my favorite stuff was when he's at the deaf school and he's really having trouble adjusting to it. So he goes outside for a bit to get away from things. And he's sitting on this like tin slide. And there's this kid who's like kind of like nonsensically like drumming on the thing to just try to hear the reverberation. So he kind of relents and starts doing it for him. And it just reminds me of like, this guy was a drummer. The thing he loved to do was express himself musically. And to get to see him do it again in a different way, that was a really powerful moment that hit me really hard. But then also, like from that, we go into this great montage of him finally like racing to learn all of the sign language and like figuring out different tricks of like becoming a deaf person and, getting to know more people in the addict house. That was definitely probably my favorite moment that really hit me hard. What about you? What was your favorite scene?
Yeah, I pretty much the same thing you said. I really like the scene. I think it comes shortly after, where they're racing to do the alphabet in sign language, and they're really competitive about that. I'm like, he's really finally like letting himself into the community, and it was really great to see that.
He's even doing the sign language like again. It's great.
So you told me you wanted to learn about the production. So I actually took a couple hours of watching a lot of YouTube videos and variety to like distill it down as much as possible. So if you want more information, do it yourself.
Shoot, I thought you were gonna like give me the lead, like how Riz prepared and shit. Like, is there anything?
I'm gonna tell. All right, so basically, the story for this film came about. Basically, it was 10 years in the making for Darius, the director, because it originally came about for like a documentary from a band called Jucifer. And it's about a couple that plays like super loud music, and he wants to explore the relationship that they had on the codependency. So he's been working on that for over 10 years. So it's like learning about that is like, wow, that's a long time to do it. But you know what? I think I had to say it's kind of worth it because that movie is a great film with a lot of great actors.
Mm-hmm. And it's that makes a lot of sense for that preparation for the couple as well. That's really good to hear that that was the inspiration.
Yeah. So like as far as preparation, they only had 4 weeks to shoot this film, but Olivia, she learned how to play the guitar, scream, and use a loop pedal in 6 weeks. And Riz, to learn ASL and how to drum, took him 6 to 7 months to do it.
Sure.
Yeah, and he's already a rapper and a musician. I didn't know this before. He's already a rapper and a musician. So learning the drums is like, I don't know. He said it was hard, but when he said he was learning ASL, he said his teacher was a very patient man. And I think, also for the drummer teacher, they were very patient with him because he had to learn it like every day for like 6 to 7 months.
Yeah. Have you seen many movies with him, Riz Ahmed?
I only know him from Rogue One.
Oh, really? You've never seen Nightcrawler is one I think you would really dig. It's a thriller starring. It was kind of.
Oh yeah, he was in that.
Yeah. He's the assistant to Jake Gyllenhaal in that. He's and everybody was like, oh, he's gonna get like a supporting actor nod. Like he's great in that. Another one. I think the first thing I ever saw him in was Four Lions. And I've always really liked that director. But that was a really good one. Yeah, he's done a lot. He's one of those guys that's like he's done a ton of great indies and stuff, but then he'll be in like Venom or like you said, like Rogue One and stuff like that. But yeah, no, he's one of those actors I've been watching a lot. There's one that he did that hasn't come out yet called Mowgli that's directed by this guy I'm really fascinated with, Bassam Tariq, who did a short film on my hometown called Ghost of Sugarland, which is on Netflix, and I highly recommend it. But I was really excited to see that he was doing a narrative film and with one of my favorite actors. So definitely keep that one on your radar. That's going to come out later this year, and I'm really excited to see that one. But no, I'm a big, Riz Ahmed fan. And he's a great rapper, too. Like, it's worth looking up his ciphers. I feel like there's videos of him in, like, Childish Gambino, Donald Glover, like, doing stuff on radio stations back when, like, Donald was touring the UK. But he's a really talented rapper as well, yeah.
I had to look him up.
Absolutely.
And I see, like, for Mowgli, it's kind of the same plot.
It's a little similar from what I've heard, but I am really excited to... Again, I'm just a massive fan of Bassam's movies that I've seen so far, so I always like finding, like, short filmmakers that I like and seeing whatever their first feature ends up being.
Gotcha. And I found another interesting fact about this was that, like I said before, they only had 4 weeks to shoot this film, so they were pretty like limited. And they were also shooting on 35mm film.
Oh, they did? Wow.
Yeah, that stuff expensive. So what they said, according to Riz, it was only 1 to 2 takes per scene, essentially. So like a lot of stuff it was rare to go beyond 2 takes. Sure. And when he was playing the drums, he still wasn't sure if he was still able to like play drums like live, because he was in front of a live audience. And the people there aren't just extras. They're people who are there because they like the music. They're music enthusiasts.
Yeah, and they're into like that genre, and he wants to make it genuine, yeah.
Yeah, so he wasn't too confident in his drumming ability, but Darius really encouraged him to continue with it. So, yeah, they shot that scene live, that club scene live, and he was actually playing the music live on camera. So It was really interesting to see that because, like, that's not easy. That's not easy at all.
And that makes a lot of sense, though. It's like that really, I mean, if it makes him feel any better, I went to a lot of those types of shows. He nailed it. I think it's pretty close to, it really felt like being in the room of that kind of stuff. And again, it just being in a pandemic made me miss going to live music. But I really enjoyed that. And I thought they really nailed that type of music.
Definitely. And he said they basically shot it chronologically as well. So like all the goodbyes that happened in the movie kind of felt like actual goodbyes. So for the final scene with Paul, Racy, and Riz, that scene where he kind of says, he says he has to leave. So all the deaf cast had already left, and it was only those 2 guys on the set. And every day that they were there shooting with the deaf cast, it was sunny and everything. But on that day, it was raining, it was cloudy, and it was overcast.
Wow.
So
That's sign from the film gods, man, because that really works. I thought that they had done like some special lighting to try to make it feel a little more moody than what we've seen the rest of the house, but that's really fascinating to hear. That's awesome.
Another thing that like I found very interesting because he got the earpieces, the implants.
Hmm.
Riz, he actually wore those devices. They were custom made for his ears, and those devices made him hear white noise so that he couldn't hear his. It wouldn't allow him to hear his own voice.
Interesting. Because I was wondering, like, when he's like starting to go deaf, if he ever like they like put in like little like earplugs or something, so it like he truly like has to like. Because the thing of this, if you lose your hearing, it's like you feel like you have to talk louder because you feel like everything else is quieter, or you feel like it's just like you're having to like talk over yourself almost. And he really nailed that well when it's like he's clearly going deaf. I was like, oh, I wonder if they actually did like put little stuff in his ears and then like mat it out in post or whatever. That's interesting. He also wore a headpiece for that. That's really cool. Oh, I was just gonna ask you, I wonder how much research like the sound design team had to do as well, like for like figuring out like how those the world would sound through those implants. That'd be really interesting to figure out.
I'm not sure about that, but like I know that one of the sound design guys, he is a friend of Darius's. He's apparently like a French guy.
Oh, word. Okay.
When they went to do post, they went to Mexico with this other guy. I think his name was Carlos Regada.
Okay.
And at that place, they basically just only worked on sound for 7 weeks.
Wow, that's incredible. That's really cool.
Oh yeah, for the well check. So like basically the other like sound recording they had to do on set, like closing the doors or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They recorded the sounds of Riz chewing, swallowing, and blinking to get the internal soundscape. And I found that really interesting because chewing and swallowing, that kind of makes sense. Mm-hmm. But blinking, that's a whole other level right there.
It's a lot smaller, but again, he's like a very phonetic and anxious person, and even if you don't like totally feel it, I can imagine why they did that to make you really feel that anxiety of just like, because we hear and see so much of the movie through his character that when we like, I love like those bits when we like push in and like we're hearing the world how he hears it. I feel like that would amplify a lot of those sounds, even if it's stuff you wouldn't really hear, like a blink. Like I don't even know how you would actually record that, or it seems like they would fake it, but yeah, chewing and swallowing definitely makes a lot more sense because again, it's the stuff that's around your ears that you would like be able to hear more than anything else. I love it. Those little touches. That's really cool.
I like. I'm not sure if you saw me. I was trying to blink, and I'm like, "Can I hear my blinking?" And like, I can't hear it. It might be the headphones I have.
Maybe it's like I wonder. Like I feel like if I was really still, maybe I could hear like my heart beating, or I feel like I could hear my like jaw clenching, unclenching, like those weird. Like even when you smile, I remember I went to a Tool show once, and they at one point were just like, "All right, we're gonna be quiet, and everybody in the stadium like smile." And it was like 1, 2, 3, and we all smiled. They made this really weird noise. It was I don't know. It's just like those things where you're really focusing on one sound.
Wow. I can like imagine it's probably like the sound of their lips, or like them inside the mouth. Like
it's a little bit. I think it's like your jaw unhinging too, or like your lips kind of puckering apart. But you have to imagine like whatever it is, like 5,000 people doing that at the same time. It's a very strange experience to be a part of.
And now a word from our sponsors. Now back to the show.
So Hush is a 2016 American slasher film directed and edited by Mike Flanagan. Starring Kate Siegel, who also co-wrote the film with Flanagan. It's about a deaf writer who lives in a solitary life in the woods. One night, a masked killer appears in her window. So Jason, why was Hush on your list?
Okay, this is going to be a first for us. I don't know why.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know how.
I have a theory of how it's on your list, but I'll see if you can figure it out yourself.
I only know it's been there for the longest time. I don't want to say longest time, but since Netflix had it on, I just like put it on a list, and I was like, you know what? I don't know why. It might have been around the time like I started getting into horror movies, which was not too long ago, but still, I don't know why.
My theory is because you've seen some of the director's other movies. So it's Mike Flanagan who did the Haunting of Hill House and Haunting of Bly Manor shows, but he also did like one of the Ouija movies. He did Oculus, and probably his most famous one, Doctor Sleep, which is like the sequel to The Shining. So if you're like me, maybe you were just like, oh, I like this director's other movies. This one's highly rated, or a lot of people like this one. I'll check this one out.
So that would make sense, but the thing is, like, I even put it there even before the Haunting series.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I saw it back in like 2016, whenever it came out. But what did you, what were your initial thoughts, man? Like, did you dig it, or?
I loved it. It was a really great movie. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to say I liked it even more than Sound of Metal, because...
Well, it sounds like you did, because in Sound of Metal, you were like, oh, it's fine. It's not a high bar
I guess
across.
I enjoyed myself I enjoyed myself with this film a lot more.
Yeah, it's a more fun movie for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, a deaf rider in the woods, guys. And then like a serial killer just shows up in her window, and I was scared poopless for her.
I didn't realize we were censoring ourselves. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's terrifying. And I'm a big fan of the actor who plays the serial killer, John Gallagher Jr. He's another one of those guys. He's been in a ton of big stuff before, but he'll do stuff like 10 Cloverfield Lane, and like Underwater is another one that he's really good in. But he's one of my favorite actors, and I really liked him in this. I will say my one complaint. I'm curious to see if you share this complaint with me, or if you think this was a big deal. I don't like in horror movies when someone is just evil for the sake of being evil. When I first saw this movie, I was really excited about it. I was like, oh, maybe he's like a fan of her books because she's a writer. Oh, maybe it's like he targets deaf people, or oh, like he always like he finds these like secluded places in the woods, and he's just like, nope, I just love killing. And to me, that kind of is it reads as lazy writing to me a little bit, or it just feels like a missed opportunity. But I was a lot nicer to the film this time because, again, like what we were talking about with Sound of Metal, like the sound design in this movie is really incredible.
I don't want to say I completely share your thoughts, but I understand what your complaint is, essentially.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, because have you seen Misery? I'm sure you have.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so basically it could have been Misery,
Yeah.
but in reverse.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I was kind of thinking. I was like, oh, it's gonna be. I thought that's what they were doing was like a reverse Misery.
Like maybe he's too mad about her latest ending or whatever. Like, hey,
yeah,
why'd you kill my favorite character? Bring her back.
But I did love that that she's a writer because it gets into that writer brain, and that's something that they kind of touch on in Misery. But there's something about that creative, like you're always looking. She has literally like 10 different endings to her book, and we see her like act that out in her head. And I'm sure you're the same because you're a horror fan, but in horror movies, I like when the lead is smart. I like when they make decisions that I would make. I don't like when when I have to be like, don't go in there, because it's not something that I as a character would do. And that's something I really appreciated about this film is really getting into the survivalist instincts of like, what are my moves here? And I thought they covered that really well. And again, it's Mike Flanagan. I've become a huge fan of how he blocks scenes and what he does with his cinematography. So that's been really cool to see.
And it's interesting to think that Kate, the actress who plays Maddie in the film, she didn't see herself as like a victim in the film. She saw her character as an action hero, kind of like in Die Hard.
Oh, absolutely.
Bruce Willis's character, by the end of the movie, he is bloodied, he is tired, he is exhausted, but he's still a warrior. And that's how she saw her character in that film. I'm like, yeah, I agree with that. It's like you're just surviving, trying like get rid of this guy who's just there for no reason,
Yeah, and she ends up using her deafness as a strength, It's like she's able to like make this like blaring noise that like distracts him and like really like throws him to the ground. Like, I don't know, it's interesting. I think we both watched Hush and then Sound of Metal. I feel like we should have done it the other way around because Sound of Metal is about someone struggling and learning to cope with being deaf, and then Hush is about this badass who like has totally conquered the medium. And yeah, she's like a total, not even like a final girl. She's a badass. Like she's a total superhero. And again, I like characters who are smarter than me making smart choices in horror movies. To me, that's more exciting and more interesting. But again, I think John Gallagher Jr., he plays like, as much as I don't like that basic, like, oh, I'm just a mad guy with a knife. I really like that he like took on that role so well of playing this like really like those glares in his eyes and the way he tries to like trick the neighbor, like that just demented stare. I think he just really nailed and knocked out of the park.
I will say I don't want to say it's my favorite scenes, but one that was very chilling for me, like I was like scared for her, was when John Gallagher's character, who is just referred to as the man in like the credits, he realizes that she can't hear him, and he's basically inside her house, and then takes her phone and then takes pictures of her with the phone and then sends it to her laptop, and then she realizes she's being like looked
watched
at
by someone
because that whole entire time he could have killed her at any time, but he chose not to because he likes to play with his would-be victims. And in this case, also the other two people who also died in this movie.
But again, I want to know why he wants to play with his victims. I want a little motivation, Jason. I want to see where this is coming from. I don't want just notches on a crossbow.
Notches on a crossbow. Yeah, what, like 13 people on there? Yeah. Like, wow. Maybe we don't need to know. Maybe.
I guess so. That's what people have told me when I complained about this when it first came out. It's like, you're overthinking it, But it's just the rest of the movie was so intelligent. I was like, I thought like, oh, we're so close, but
Right. It reminds me of like this movie I saw, Collateral. Yeah, Collateral.
oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
I saw it with my mom, and my mom asked me, "Okay, what happens next?" I'm like, "What do you mean? The court case? Like, did they show the court case?" I'm like, "It takes place in one night, Mom. It's all about surviving the night."
It is, but I always think the same thing of like what happens to these characters next. And this is a movie I kind of thought that too. But no, I think I really love, and especially because it sounds like you're an action guy. Like I really loved how they staged the action and the choreography of the film, like going around the house. Like it's that tightness that I always love. And like I mean, one of the greatest movies of all time, or the two big thrillers, same person, Jaws and like Jurassic Park. I love like that intense like tightness we get with the characters when they're like hiding from something or they're waiting for something to happen. And I really loved when what Mike Flanagan was able to do, especially in the kitchen, but also when she's like going out on the roof and stuff. Like there's a lot of great moments of truly incredible blocking, which is such a big. And I think I also just like that it's not a bunch of like I'm not a big fan of like jump scares. It's like when they're used really well, it's fantastic. But something I really like about Flanagan's work that I've seen is that it doesn't rely too heavily on like just having like it like the sound dips down boop. I like that he finds other ways to scare us, and I think that's a more satisfying fright, as it were.
Yeah, definitely. He also said like when he was making this film, he wanted to go away from all that, like the cheap frills essentially. So it's great that you pointed that out. And also about the blocking, this is really interesting to like talk about because Flanagan and Siegel they're a married couple, and so when
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting to like once you learn about that because they were doing the blocking in their own house, right? And it proved problematic for filming because when they went to shoot the film in Alabama, they couldn't find a house that matched the same house in where they lived at.
Oh, wow.
So they had to really adjust the script when they had to when they eventually settled on the house that they got.
Sure.
As far as the movement, he used a Steadicam to follow Siegel's every move, along with a boom mic and a spotter.
Mm-hmm.
But all the other sound they had to do ADR afterwards because apparently Flanagan said it sounded like a herd of elephants with the sound they recorded on set.
Oh, I'll bet. Yeah. Oh, wow. That's interesting. Because I remember this film being a pretty big hit at that year. I went to South by Southwest every year for the last 10 years, sans of course the pandemic one. Yeah, I remember this being like this was like the hit at South by Southwest everyone was talking about. And it's been, pretty incredible to see it find this new life on, I think it's been on Netflix for the last 5 or 6 years. So it's been incredible again, I feel great that I finally got to watch it again. Oh, but I was going to recommend a movie I think you would appreciate. Have you ever seen Wait Until Dark?
No, but I think they did talk about it in one of the articles I was reading about.
That makes sense. I think you would love it. It's a psychological thriller. Audrey Hepburn was nominated for Best Actress for it, but it's the same movie, but she's blind instead of deaf. And it's a lot of a similar. I imagine that would be like a huge influence. And it's weirdly, I remember Henry Mancini does the music, which he's like Pink Panther and all that kind of stuff. So it was interesting to see him do like a scary score for something. But that's one of my favorite psychological thrillers, and it's very. If I had known that, I feel like that was one I was thinking of. It was either going to be that, but I had seen that before, and I wanted to knock something off my list. But I feel like that would be a good one for your list. It's terrifying. Scary, but it's also another badass woman getting through this crazy situation.
Gotcha. I'll definitely look into that then.
Yeah, I think you would really enjoy it. It's a pretty incredible one for sure.
And on making the character deaf mute, Flanagan said it originated from him wanting to do a movie without dialogue. Mm-hmm. And here's a quote taken from him from the article from Bloody Disgusting, which is an actual website. I never knew it.
Yep. Yeah, no, I know Bloody Disgusting.
He said, "One of the things I'd always wanted to try, which would be so challenging to me as a director, was to try something without dialogue. I coupled that with this idea that Kate was talking about a lot, which was the anxiety of seeing somebody try to get into your house. We thought that if we made the lead character deaf mute, then we would create the potential for a really, really fascinating version of these movies." And then Kate continues, says, "At that dinner, we were also discussing how the most scary aspect of the films we love was sound design. Mm-hmm. Sound design really sells a movie, so we were discussing ways to make sound design more of a character on a script level.
Sure.
To really make sure that sound design is something that gets the weight it deserves. The opposite of that is to remove the sound from the main character since you had to balance that somewhere else in the movie. So sound design is something that we really want to play with. I think that at the beginning, Maddie being a deaf mute was something that was more of a script challenge. Then as we started to meet this woman, we realized that it was a real benefit to character development, tension, and things like that. We could do things that we couldn't do if your character could speak or hear.
Yeah. I also kind of like how they subverted expectation of like they keep because we do have the neighbor swing by, but like she keeps almost calling her ex-boyfriend or whatever. And I kept thinking like, oh, he's gonna swing by and then he's gonna be the next victim, and then we never see it. And there's something I like that kind of stuff where it's like you kind of like I think some people would call that like a red herring or like, oh, you should like give this some finality to this, but there is something I like about that, which I'm talking myself into like, oh, maybe it's fine if John Gallagher Jr. just likes killing. Maybe he doesn't need to be motivated by anything else, or we don't need his whole backstory. Because that was my wife's critique of my critique when we first saw the movie. But I definitely I liked it a lot more this time around. In that like final, it's weird because these the two movies also kind of share like a final shot. Like there's just that like we were overcome with this like stillness all of a sudden, and like I don't have like both films up on me, but I feel like those last two frames like both look pretty identical of them both looking like kind of peaceful
Right. You're
in
right.
their situation. So it's not just a def double bill; it works on that level as well.
I didn't think about that until just now because like it's both a close up on their extreme close up on both of their faces.
Yeah, and it's just they're both
Wow.
feeling that like stillness and peace of of conquering this obstacle to make it as general as possible. But yeah, no, that's really cool to hear though.
I also want to discuss like the stunts in the film because Kate did it herself as well.
Okay.
But she said she didn't know what she was getting herself into because she thought it would be fun. But there's this moment in the film where like her hand is slammed in the door.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So here's this from the same article from Bloody Disgusting. Right, and so they still had to slam your hand at the door. So what happened after take 12 or 13 was that I would start flinching before the slam, and that just couldn't happen. We had shot pretty much in order, so by that time I had already been through a lot of stuff. I was jumping out of windows, climbing on the roof with a harness, and a lot of other things had happened. So I remember a point after some skin accidentally got pinched during the door slam, I just went, that's it, I'm done, we got it. I took my hand away, and Mike's deep, deep love of actors came in, and he was like, please know that you're in the right place right now. This is exactly right. This is your talent coming out. Please, can we try this again? So I tried it one more time, and I think that's the take that we ended up using.
Oh, that's great. I was gonna say, I was like, it's got to be an interesting thing when it's like you're directing your wife and you have to, and they're in like physical pain, and it's just like, just one more. But that makes sense. I've heard he's a fantastic actor's director. And again, if you haven't seen, I was really surprised. I had put off watching Doctor Sleep for a long time because I love The Shining. I think is my favorite Kubrick movie, and I was like, I don't want to see anybody like return to that world. But they really do. I love that movie. They really do something kind of interesting with it, and I think it's at its best when he doesn't try to just walk in Kubrick's footsteps. He like tries his own visual touches on it, and yeah, I definitely am a big Mike Flanagan fan now. So I highly recommend searching out some more of his movies.
Gotcha. I think I'll finally not put it, but actually watch Haunting of Hill House because that's also on my list.
See, I like the movie more, like the old one from the '60s, but like I think I got like halfway through the series and I was finally like, I'm good with the rest of it. I'm not as big of a horror fan, but my wife is, so I think she finished that one without me. So Jason, do you think that you should have seen Hush a lot sooner, or like what do you think?
I think I could have benefited from watching it like last year at least, you know.
Sure, being trapped in your house.
You know, like I'm still like in my house. I don't go out as much as I used to. Even before this pandemic, I was still much a homebody.
Sure.
2019 was a very busy year for me, and I thought I was going to continue to 2020, but no, it didn't happen. But I think I could have benefited from watching this last year because I watched Scream 4 last year as well, and I really liked that movie.
Okay.
So I think watching Hush afterwards would have been like a really good follow-up to that movie.
That'd be a good Devil. Is Scream 4 your favorite of the Screams? Because I think I always go back, like the first two to me are the only good ones. I don't really like any of the other Scream movies.
I wouldn't say it's the best one, but like the way it happens is that like I'll watch it whenever it was available. So like I think there's a moment where Scream 1 and Scream 3 were on Netflix, but not Scream 2. And I'd never seen the movies before, so I was like trying to watch it in order. Yeah, so like whenever it was available to watch, I'll like watch it.
Yeah.
Scream 4 just happened to be available on demand, so I just like watched it.
Sure. Because I'm a big like sucker for like that horror comedy genre. Like obviously like Shaun of the Dead is the pinnacle of it, but I mean Wes Craven is the, you know, that like he crawled so Edgar Wright could run. So it's I always love seeing like Wes Craven's like his straight up horror movies, but then like the meta I like the meta-ness of like Scream and Scream 2. I'm a big sucker for it, and like that again, it's just like incredible blocking and kitchen blocking as well. So there you go. That would be a good double bill with this as well. That makes sense.
I forgot what happened in Scream 3, if I'm getting honest with you guys. Is that what the...
Scream 3 is like Jay and Silent Bob have a cameo on it. That's all I remember from that one. But I think to me the best ones are 1 and 2. No, one is the best one. But 2 is like really good as well.
Definitely the first one is the best one.
Yeah, but the one is like where it's like the whole like Drew Barrymore thing, and it's like being chased around like the kitchen and stuff like that from a guy in the woods. So yeah, that would be a really good double bill with this one for sure. But I also think Wait Until Dark. I think you'll really enjoy that one. You'll have to let me know if you check it out.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for listening. This is the end of our discussion. But before we go, Andy, can you tell me, were the movies a hit or a miss with you?
I'd say a hit on Letterboxd, which I'm at AY Film if people want to look me up. I would say that Hush was a 4 stars and Sound of Metal was a full 5 stars. I really enjoyed both, made a solid double bill and a good evening of entertainment. What about you? Were they hit, miss, somewhere in between?
They're both hits for me, you know, like...
Right on.
As far as the rating system, it's a little different, but as far as like movies to watch that are enjoyable, they were hits for me.
Right on, man. That's awesome.
Andy, can you tell us, like, do you have any projects coming up?
Yeah, I have a podcast called Best Picture where we're watching all of the Oscar movies, and that's on all of the apps and stores. Hopefully by the time you hear this, I'll be on a big project or not. I'm kind of waiting to hear. But yeah, you can look up my website at Andy Young Film to see stuff I've done as a film editor and catch me on all your social medias and stuff. But hit me up on Letterboxd. I love talking to other movie fans like Jason, so it's that's definitely the place I like hanging out the most. So AY Film on Letterboxd if you're going to find me.
All right, thank you guys. Thank you for listening. And until next time, cross off a new film from your list. Thank you for listening to the Hit List Podcast. If you like this episode, please consider giving us 5 stars and leaving a review. It really does help. You can also follow us on Facebook at The Hit List Podcast and Instagram at _hitlist_podcast.